Senate advances first government funding bill despite Dem opposition. In a significant move, the Senate has managed to push through its first government funding bill, overcoming opposition from Democrats who hinted at potential roadblocks in the funding process. This development comes amidst a backdrop of tension, as Senate Democrats have expressed concerns that the passage of partisan legislation, particularly President Donald Trump's $9 billion clawback package, has eroded the trust essential for effective appropriations. Despite these tensions, a closed-door meeting on Tuesday afternoon led to enough Democratic votes to advance the bill aimed at funding military construction and the Department of Veterans Affairs, VA. This vote not only allows for amendments, but also opens the floor for debate among lawmakers. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, representing New York, emphasized the Democrats' desire for a bipartisan agreement on spending, indicating a willingness to support the current funding package for the time being. "We are collaborating to achieve this goal," Schumer stated. However, the reality is that Republicans are complicating matters. Actions like rescissions and impoundments are directly undermining our efforts. The bill passed with a decisive 90-8 vote, with Schumer and most Senate Democrats joining their Republican counterparts to initiate debate. However, the Democrats' frustration was palpable, particularly following the recent approval of Trump's rescissions package, which significantly cut funding for foreign aid and public broadcasting. They argue that such actions have damaged the trust necessary for bipartisan cooperation on spending bills. Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland, a prominent member of the Senate Appropriations Committee, articulated this sentiment, stating, "When someone makes a commitment one day and reverses it the next, it undoubtedly creates trust issues." In a strategic move, Senate Majority Leader John Thune from South Dakota decided to challenge the Democrats by bringing the bill to the floor. He noted that failing to advance this legislation could lead to a tumultuous path for government funding, especially with the September 30th deadline looming to prevent a partial government shutdown. Thune remarked, "Democrats have expressed their dissatisfaction over a rescissions bill that only cut a minuscule fraction of federal spending. Yet they seem ready to use this as a reason to halt the appropriations process and potentially shut down the government." He further urged Democrats to reconsider their stance, emphasizing the importance of a collaborative appropriations process. Before the vote, Senate Appropriations Chair Susan Collins from Maine advocated for the bill's passage, recalling the commitment she and Senator Patty Murray from Washington made to work together on spending matters when they took charge of the committee. Collins acknowledged the challenges faced during previous Democratic control of the chamber, but stressed the importance of fulfilling Congress's fundamental responsibilities. While the passage of this initial bill and the subsequent amendment process is a step forward, it does not guarantee a smooth appropriations process in the coming months. Since the late 1990s, Congress has not successfully passed spending bills through a regular order, often resorting to short-term funding extensions and large omnibus packages to maintain government operations. The ongoing disagreements over funding levels between the Senate and House, along with uncertainties regarding Schumer's willingness to collaborate with Republicans, could set the stage for another contentious showdown as the September deadline approaches. Schumer indicated plans to meet with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and key Democrats from both the House and Senate Appropriations Committees to discuss the funding process in the near future. With the government funding deadline fast approaching, less than 25 legislative days away, Republicans should prioritize working with us to support American families, Schumer urged. Senator John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, who previously voted alongside Republicans to prevent a government shutdown, delivered a strong message to Senate Democrats contemplating obstructing the funding process. "I will never, ever vote to shut our government down," he asserted. "That is a fundamental duty. While we may disagree with certain changes, that is simply how democracy functions. How could anyone justify shutting down the government and throwing our country into chaos?" Alex Miller, a writer for Fox News Digital, covers the U.S. Senate. Chuck Schumer's strategy for the next funding fight with Trump. Navigating a tightrope. Schumer's strategy to steer Democrats through the next funding clash with Trump. In the looming political showdown, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is determined to prevent his party from becoming the villain in the eyes of the public. With the fall funding deadline rapidly approaching, Democrats are gearing up for a significant test of their resolve against President Donald Trump. Schumer, still reeling from the backlash he faced during the contentious March funding fight, is taking preemptive measures to avoid being caught in the crosshairs of Democratic outrage once again. The March battle left a bitter taste in the mouths of many Democrats, who felt Schumer had capitulated to Trump's demands. This time around, Schumer is keen on finding a path that unifies his party rather than fracturing it. The goal is to avoid the narrative of Democrats in disarray that marred the party's image earlier this year. On Tuesday, Democrats convened for a lengthy caucus-wide meeting to strategize their approach. Schumer also met with his House counterpart, Hakeem Jeffries, to discuss the way forward. While no formal plan has been outlined, it's evident that Schumer is eager to shield his party from the intense backlash they faced in March. However, achieving consensus within a diverse caucus will be a daunting task. In March, only 9 Democratic senators joined Schumer in voting with Republicans to keep the government open. Since then, Democrats' reasons for challenging Trump have only multiplied. Republicans passed a significant tax and spending cuts bill, which included substantial cuts to Medicaid and food programs, without a single Democratic vote. They also voted to reclaim $9 billion in federal funds for foreign aid and public broadcasting that had already been allocated by Congress. Senator Angus King, an independent who caucuses with Democrats, expressed his frustration, stating, "Unless the Republicans agree to a no rescissions clause, a vote on an appropriations bill is a sham." King, who voted with Schumer and the GOP to keep the government open in March, is now uncertain if he would do so again in the fall. The challenge for Democrats lies in balancing two realities. On one hand, Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought and Capitol Hill conservatives are signaling a readiness for deeper budget cuts, reflecting Trump's Department of Government Efficiency's massive slashes. On the other hand, Senate Democrats are working collaboratively with Republicans on the Appropriations Committee to pass several bills with broad bipartisan support. They are aware that if the government shuts down, they may lack the leverage to reopen it. There is a real tension between Russ Vought and OMB and the rescissions vote, which are going right at a stable, steady appropriations process, and what has been happening on committee so far, said Delaware Senator Chris Coons, the top Democrat on the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee. The unpredictability of the next few months for the party is underscored by the fact that House Republicans will manage their appropriations process. Conservatives are already preparing for a full revolt if Speaker Mike Johnson opts for a stopgap government funding measure instead of passing all 12 individual spending bills. Even if the House can pass the dozen bills with their slim majority, many are likely to be non-starters in the Senate, where Republicans need 60 votes to advance their bills. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has made it clear that Democrats are in no mood to assist Republicans in passing those bills. "It's my expectation that if Republicans try to force a highly partisan spending bill on the American people here in the House, we'll reject it," he said when asked by CNN if he would adopt the same tactic as last year in rejecting GOP spending bills. In March, Schumer defended his decision to vote with Republicans to keep the government open, arguing that not doing so would only empower Trump. However, in recent weeks, Schumer has shown a willingness to explore various options depending on how the spending talks progress. Democratic members have noted that he has been deeply involved in discussions on how to manage the September fight. Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat who voted against the stopgap funding bill in March, told CNN that Schumer has clearly taken lessons from the spring and applied them to the current situation. "I definitely know in the aftermath of that, he called all 47 of us. We were on recess the following week. He called all 47. What do you think? What should we do differently next time? I mean, he's been very diligent in trying to seek advice and then also engage in significant discussions in the caucus about CRs and spending battles," Kaine said. There are indications that some Senate Democrats, even those who supported a stopgap measure to keep the government open last time, are less inclined to repeat the move. Many Democrats are urging Republicans to put in writing that any spending deal they agree to won't be reversed later with a GOP-only package to cut funding for programs they don't support. "I don't understand what it means to negotiate an appropriations deal with Republicans unless they have put in writing that there will be no rescissions and no impoundment," said Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Massachusetts Democrat. However, Senator Jeanne Shaheen, who voted with Schumer to keep the government open in the spring, emphasized the importance of Republicans and Democrats in the Senate agreeing that they, not the executive branch, should be making the spending decisions. This really shouldn't be a partisan issue. It's a question of which branch of government you're in and what kind of oversight you want to have over the executive, she said. As for what Democrats learned from the spring fight, Shaheen offered one piece of advice that she believes Schumer is implementing now. I think in terms of lessons learned, the big lesson was we should have talked about it sooner and made it clear sooner what we thought was important to do.